should have said we are going to be speaking about mental health, especially with a view to getting good mental health for young people. Now, both of you are young guys, and one of you has a personal story. Let me start with you, Betty.
Yes.
Tell us about your journey.
Okay, so my journey dates back to 2017. I was a high school student. I was very young, quite 17. And
still very young.
So 17, 18,
yes.
I found myself at a point of a lot of bottled up feelings. And that was from a lot of emotional wounds, mostly in high school. But to surprise you enough, it didn't start as a big thing. It started with little things that I bottled up day in, day out. And one time I realized that they had really affected me. And how I knew that is when I attempted suicide for the first time. And I had this urge to always want to not be around. And I had this self-belief that I had instilled in myself that the world would be better off without me. And that's how it started. It started from small signs like saying statements like, I don't think I should be alive, or, you know, just secluding myself and feeling very lonely and alone. Those are the signs that made me realize that I was not okay, but I didn't think it was to be an illness or it would make me get to such a dire, you know, situation like wanting to die. So I attempted suicide for the very first time in 2017. It went to the second, it went to the third. The first and second time I took some tablets which are like aspirins, but they were very strong. So when I tried the first time, I didn't die. So frustrated. I wondered, why am I not dying? I tried the second time, and every time I tried attempting suicide and it failed, it left me more frustrated than the previous one. So that time was very much quite researched. I had intentionally purposed to deliberately want to die, and I had made it an aim that I didn't want to talk about it. I didn't want anyone to know about it. So all this time, you know, of course the school nurse knew, of course my parents knew, and they always wanted to help me, but I don't think I was receptive enough. I was not willing enough to live, and I didn't think anyone did understand me. So long story, the third time, the fourth time, the fifth time. Okay, the third time when I tried it, I was rushed to hospital, and that's when they told me that I might be sick, and they did a lot of scans. They did a lot of physical scans, but I don't think anyone wanted, or, okay, they did try, but I didn't think I wanted to say that I have all these problems, and I have all this pain, and I don't know if all this pain leaves, will I feel even more relevant? You know, I had so many questions. So that time I was admitted to hospital. After like 2 weeks, I was diagnosed with bipolar. Now this became my reason to die. Now I felt like, one, I have all these feelings and all these emotions and all these struggles, all these pains and all these frustrations, and I'm not dying. And then now here comes a mental illness. I didn't know anything about bipolar. I didn't know it was an illness. I didn't know if it was curable. I didn't know what I would do, you know, all those questions. Now I had more questions. And the fact that I didn't want to unwind and tell people and lessen the burden, it made me feel very crowded up, if quote quote crowded up, you know. And that was my downfall, honestly. The fact that I never wanted to talk about it. That was my downfall. So fourth time, I attempted suicide again. The fifth time was my turning point, because when I was in hospital, there was a certain nurse who came into my room, and I had this record of having lots of attempted suicide, you know, and I was admitted in that hospital for like 2 times, so I did have a record. And this guy comes into my room. This is the 5th time now, after I had attempted suicide the 5th time. And he comes into my room and tells me, and gets my blouse off and tells me that even if I shouted, or even if I tried to scream, or even if I said anything at this point, no one is ever going to believe me. That hit me. That hit me. That was like telling me, because you're mentally ill, because you're depressed, because you have all these struggles, you deserve to be abused in this way. There's one thing that I told him, and why I say this was my turning point, because that is when I realized that I have to get up. You know, I have to choose. I really want to choose to live. So after he did what he did in hospital, the next day I said it and no one believed me. Only one person, my psychologist, believed me, and I was released from hospital in like 2 or 3 days. And the 6th time,
Where
I
were you at
attempted
hospital this time?
suicide. I was in the psychiatric ward. I can't mention the hospital, you know. So this was in the psychiatric ward. It was a room 537, and I cannot forget that time because it was such a frustrating moment for me. So after I was released from hospital, I was so bitter. Now I was bitter with God, I was bitter with my family, I was bitter with everyone. But yet, I wanted to live to see the downfall of this guy. So really, my bitterness and my reason to live was I really wanted to see the downfall of this guy and any other person who will ever trivialize a situation of a mentally ill person, or not more so, whether be male, be female. I really wanted to look forward to seeing people be informed and people learning. So the 6th time I started cutting myself. And this was more of an expression of what I felt inside, but I really felt a lot of contentment, seeing blood, because I, in my head, I used to tell myself, I don't think there is ever going to be anything painful, any physical pain, any beating, any harassment that will be as painful as what I went through that period where I was so crowded up, and then this man comes in and tells me that no one is ever going to believe you, you know, and he said this, that even if you screamed and even if you did anything, I'm just going to sedate you and I'm going to say you had an attack. And it was so believable. His story was so believable. I look back at it right now and I'm like, okay, yeah, even if I did scream and he sedated me, being in a psychiatric ward, you know, that's where, you know, quote, quote, people who have lost it, and that's where I was. I was in a room alone. It was in, they call it the strong room. It was white in color, nothing inside it. So it's just you, your TV, and your ventilation system, and a door that keeps opening. So I tried battling it in court. I really did try, and I got to a point where I told myself that before I try getting justice, I have to find my healing. And on my journey to find my healing, that's when I started trying to heal other people, and through my story and telling them that it's actually okay not to be okay.
Yeah, it's okay not to be okay. Something you said, of course, when you were here last. Huh? When you hear stories like this, Ezra, what comes to your mind?
I think, Levi, what comes to my mind is that the mental health issue and the mental health problem, we are talking about all these issues about mental health, it is not properly addressed in this country and even largely in the world currently, because if you look at the statistics, they say that about an estimated 1,400 people die yearly in this country. That will tell you that approximately about 4 people die a day. And if you look at the statistics, mental health issues, either they attempt to commit suicide or they commit suicide. Approximately 4 people a day. Even away from that, you look at the worldly statistics in all the countries in the world. It is believed that in every 7 minutes, 11 people try to commit suicide. So in the first 7 minutes that we've been here, about 7 people are trying to commit suicide because of mental health related issues. So when we're talking about mental health, Levi, I think it's not a problem that should be looked down upon. It should be addressed like any other issue. It should be addressed like the way we are tackling coronavirus. Actually, the real pandemic right now, last year and this year, the real pandemic with the young people is not even the coronavirus. The real pandemic is the mental health, because a lot of people are suffering from suicidal thoughts. A lot of people are suffering from depression. So all these related issues really calculates, I think as a country, we are far away from solving the issue of mental health problems. Yeah,
and these things baffles people. Like, for example, Betty, looking at you, one can easily tell that, you know, your parents were supportive. Yeah, they were around you, and you have family, and the tendency to think like, why would this girl be even thinking of I mean, she's okay, si anachungwa, anapelekwa shule. How do you tackle that mentality? What do you tell people about that?
I will say this. Depression has no face. You know, depression can be a smiling person. Depression can be a crying person. Depression can be the person who was at the table and was at the loudest. Depression can also be the person who was at the table and was the shyest. Depression has no face. Everyone has, I always say this everywhere I go, everyone has a mental health not everyone has a mental illness, but everyone has a mental health. If you don't take care of your mental health, it automatically becomes a mental illness. So how do I tackle that mentality? Simply by saying that depression has no face. You know, you can be the richest person and still have voids in you that need a lot of feeling. You need to talk to someone. Or you can be the poorest of people and you still feel like there's something that you're going through and you need to talk about it. So, you know, we can't clearly say that this is a face of depression, you know, because we can't even see depression. We will see the symptoms, we will see the signs, but we cannot know at how a depressed person looks like, you know. I was the high school head girl for those 2 years, yet I was supposed to be the person with the most privileges, you know, eating a special food, you know, everything. And
liked by both the teachers and the
students, exactly. Won by votes and by popularity votes and won by the teachers, you know. Votes. So, yet I still went down the path that I went to. So you can never know what someone is going through. The person that you pass by, the person that you talk to, the person that you drink tea with in the office, the person that you talk about, the person that you see on the TV, you can never know what they're going through. So trying to trivialize anyone's situation because of their upbringing or just because they have this or that, that would be very unfair. I will deem that very unfair because in life, everyone will go through something. How they handle them is the different part. That people who maybe will not know how to handle an issue and they will go the road that I went to. There are people who will find a struggle and laugh about it. Maybe that's their coping mechanism. But there are these other people, and we can say that's 98%, who find storm after storm and they feel like, you know, this world totally is better off without them. And why we talk about mental health is to remind these people who feel this way is that you can talk about it and we have help for you, you know. We can teach you ways or we can tell you things that will remind you you are worthy, you're valuable, you're special, you know. So in a nutshell, that.
I hear you. There's a school of thought, Ezra, that, you know, that the young people of today are soft. That's part of the reason why we are talking about mental health issues is because vijana wa siku hizi they just cannot, they can't woman up or man up. Wanataka kubebwa, you know, wanabebwa kinini wanasema nini? Wanataka kupombelezwa. What do you say to that?
Yeah, Levi, I think before that, when we talk about the issue of mental health and especially young people, now that that is what we are tackling today, young people, let's maybe when we are talking about mental health, it is, I think anything that concerns mental health is a bit mentionable. And when we talk about it, that means that we can easily manage it. It's manageable. So there are a lot of issues that cause young people to be sent the same path. That's as said, somebody can be raised by very rich parents. So it's mental health is for everyone, and it's the same thing when you're talking about all these issues of young people. We must also include mental health because a lot of issues can cause mental health. Like a person can fail in exams. A simple issue like that will begin only by a parent telling him score a C+. But in 2 years' time, that person will be depressed. Suicidal thoughts will come. How many times in this country, after the release of the Kenya National Examinations, do you have people committing suicide because of exam-related issues, because they failed in exam? I think a year ago, a girl committed suicide because she repeated the same class and ended up scoring a lower grade. So she was humiliated. Even it is, I think I've read it somewhere before I came today that there's some girl who committed suicide because the teachers I think walimgombanisha sana because of she had spoiled her clothes with menses. So such small issues can also lead to mental health issues like depression and suicidal thoughts. So we're not talking about this age bracket, and I think it should be properly addressed when you're talking to people between 15 to 29 years, because that is when it is major to these people. Like the issue of Betty, you see, it's unmanageable. You can't look at a person and say that this person is suffering, this person is undergoing through something, until that person comes out to share and talk about their feelings, sharing their feelings. That is when we can now address it from that point. So Levi, young people, It is, and you know, right now, this generation that you're in, you're very, very hard people. They are hardcore.
Yeah.
I can't really express myself very easily to my parents because I don't relate to my parents well. We go to school with teachers, we don't relate to them well. So we can't really express our feelings and talk out our feelings very well. So I think that is the main issue, the expression of what is inside us.
Yeah,
because
but the generations before you
inside.
say you're soft, they say, you know, even as we went through lack of exam failure, we went through, you know, a difficulty with parents. They're like, why would they, the generation following us? Yes.
I think, Levi, a lot is expected from us currently. As a young man, I know maybe right now I'm 20, I'm 21 years. I know after 3 years I'll be done with campus. I'll have to look for, there is some years there, I'll have to tarmac and look for work because joblessness, I think joblessness again is another cause of depression in this country. So look at me, Levi. I'm a young person. I know after 3 years I have to gobble up with joblessness. I know after that my parents expect me to marry. Where will I marry without money? So I have to look for ways to get money. So a lot is expected, and there is a lot of pressure that is being pumped to young people in this country. Joblessness and unemployment being the main issue. Parents expect a lot from you. Teachers, you are in high school, they really expect a lot from you. You yourself, you've got a lot of expectation from yourself. So I think if we don't talk to them, they don't have ways of expressing what is there. And there are some parents, there are teachers, everyone, and the society today, they are really being unfair to young people. They are not given the chance to express themselves. You say this, they will say, this generation yenyu unataka kubembelezwa sana, you know. That mentality that is there, and that is what has really pushed a lot of young people to the wall, ending up to commit suicide, ending up to depression and related issues. They can come out in the morning, they are smiling in class, but in the evening they cry the whole night because of depression, as someone is depressed. So I think the main issue is about a lot is really expected.
It's really expected. But let me ask you, from your personal journey and now with your treatment and now self-reflection, what would you do different in terms of the approach to mental health, or what would you expect even those around you to have done different if you were to tell someone these are the warning signs? Where would you start from?
What I would do different is I would, one, be informed myself about mental health and mental illnesses and how it comes about, how you can deal with it. And I would have also loved that the people around me would be informed about it. You know, what is bipolar, what are the signs and symptoms. Basically, it all goes down to information. And that's why I'm guided by two principles, even in my mental health coaching, my mental health mentoring: information and inspiration. Information carrying the better part, because if I knew that one time that I'm feeling so fatigued and finding myself saying statements like the world will be better off without me, if I knew that feeling that
those
I don't
were baby
want,
steps.
you know, exactly, and if I knew that I don't even want to be in a family WhatsApp group, you know, I don't even to be anywhere crowded around people, I don't want to be associated with people. If I knew that those signs were, you know, a trigger, or they were a sign and symptoms of something bigger, maybe I would have talked about it. You know, maybe I would have shared about it. Maybe I would have known that this is a path that I don't want to take, and maybe something would have come up and I would have taken a different path. So I wish I would have been informed about mental health and mental illness. And I wish even the people around me, not just my family, even my teachers, even the society, because I remember one time my story was shared somewhere and someone down in the comment section told me that I sell ropes. If you ever want to commit suicide again, I'm going to offer you a rope. I wish this person knew that that was trivializing my situation, and if maybe I was not resilient enough at that time, I would have had my 7th attempt, and trust me, that would have worked. I would have made it very, very intentional.
There are people ready to push others off the cliff.
Exactly, because they don't understand that mental health is actually an issue that is so big, so major, and it embodies physical health, emotional health, and even spiritual health.
And even the government, I guess, because attempted suicide is still a crime.
Exactly.
So in this country.
And
it's shocking, considering it's a mental, I mean, we don't criminalize other illnesses.
Exactly. You see, exactly. And that's why we have just one institution, one public institution that deals with mental health. If even the government was informed enough, they will know that this is such an issue. It's a big issue. And they will have various safe spaces for people in this society. You know, we have very expensive. One of the problems we're having with mental health is even the expenses of the tablets, of the therapy. For one session, you're charged a certain amount. So if even the government was informed enough to know that mental health is actually something that's so big, they will have different institutions that, one, are affordable, two, accessible.
Yeah, but where do we start from? Because when I went to high school, I don't know whether they're still there now. We had guidance and counseling. We had an office. I never visited it. And it was considered that if you went to that office, you were not so okay upstairs. So there was first of all stigma. And that stigma has not really portrayed even for now. You know, it's not easy for someone to say, you know, I was unwell, I had a mental health issue, I'm back, I'm okay. People tend to think, crazy, you know. Yeah. So how do we then, in this time and age, help young people overcome the stigma of having a mental health issue, so enough to be able to speak and say, I'm not okay?
I think you've just mentioned the one point that we should start from, the schools. Trust me, I wish there was a different budget for mental health classes, or even a different, or mental health being a subject enough, because in high school we're taught how to make oxygen, we're told how to identify bones. You know, I've never identified the bones, and I studied bones for a whole year in Form 4. But I wish there was a lesson like how to cope with real life issues, you know. How do you cope with sadness, stress, exactly. If we started it from just the root, and that is our primary schools, because I've seen 13-year-olds. I once went to a mission somewhere and it was full of primary schools, and I talked about my story, and I went to the car very confidently that hapa hakutakuwa na mtu. You know, this one, I don't have anyone else who is going to come to me and tell me I have a problem. Children of 13, 14, 15 telling me issues, and I sit back, I'm like, oh my, I wouldn't bail on that one. If I was in that situation, that's a difficult situation for a 13-year-old. So if we started those, if we had a separate budget, or we had instilled something, you know, in our little babies, us babies, you know, us bigger babies, and we told them this is how we cope with such things, and telling them that if you don't cope with this, it's going to be a bigger mountain. It's going to move from being an anthill, it's going to be a mountain. Just teaching them and informing them. I just want to revolve around information, because even that information will breed inspiration, and they will learn how to talk about things now. They will say that this one time in 2017, I was in a dark place, but I didn't attempt suicide because I learned ... So I think that's where we start from. We start from us, the younger generation, and younger starts all the way back to 13 years old. Because even a 13-year-old might have lost parents, might have been assaulted, might have been raped, has real life issues that even if a 25-year-old went through them, that person will go through down the road of depression. So that's where we start. One, we start from informing the younger generation, and that information, trust me, you will breed inspiration to talk about things. You know, I've gone for shows, and after talking, I hear people now saying, I went through this, and now I didn't attempt suicide, or I was in a better situation. So that's where we start from. We start from our schools, and that in itself, we start with our young generation. That's a perfect answer. That's where we definitely start from.
Yeah, anything to add on that?
I think Betty has really laid a good ground when you're talking about what we're talking about, mental health. That is the information. Information is very vital about this, because as much as every sector in our communities today, like the government, parents, schools, teachers, everybody, even we ourselves, young people, I think what we really lack as a country is the basic information about such issues, because we've really addressed all the other issues concerning young people. In some way, we've tried to address, but when it comes to matters mental health, it is barely talked about. No one is concerned about it, and when you come to talk about it openly, other things will come about, like stigmatization and such things. So I think, Levi, the first thing is information, just as Betty said. And then also number two, we have to bring about talking and counseling to these young people. I believe when we talk to a person can really come out clearly to share out their feelings and tell them that the ladder that you're climbing today, somebody else climbed yesterday. This night that you're in, somebody else was there yesterday. I was there. I think the people like Betty here can come out clearly and say that me too. I think the best encouragement for a person who is facing a mental health issue like suicide, depression, and all these things is me too. I was also there. You are not alone in this journey. So mental health is not a destination. I think it's a journey. It's not where the way you do the destiny where you are going to. It's how you are driving the car. So it's how we are treating these people daily, how we are talking about it daily, and how we are addressing it as a nation. That is where the future is. So if we talk about it seriously, we address it in our schools, we address it to our students and everybody, I think it will be better off for us as a country and as a nation. And also for young people, they have to be taught a lot of things. There are a lot of things that can cause depression, Levi. Like even things like illicit relationships. People can get into illicit relationships as young as 12, 13, 14. When you're heartbroken, you decide this is the end of me, you could decide to commit suicide, or you decide to go kill another person because of the same. You want to get rid of what is inside you. So they have to be shown other things, that even if you are in a relationship, feelings are like visitors. They can come and go anytime, but the other rude visitors who decide to stay forever. So they have to be told these issues. Feelings comes and goes. If you are faced with this is how to address it. Religious leaders should stop speculating about BBI, stop speculating about all these other issues in church. Let us focus on helping our young people, because everybody is facing. Actually,
sometimes
one in every 4 person is facing mental health
camouflage a lot of those issues. Did you ever feel like people treated you religiously and said Manima?
Wow.
Without looking at the mental health issue?
Yes, I did face that. Being a very staunch Christian myself, I think I wouldn't say I personally went through it, but I've seen people who have been treated like having a mental illness is being demon possessed, or exactly. And I think that's been spiritually unfair to them, because even Elijah, even David at one point feels like
there's a book called Lamentations.
Exactly, and it was full of people lamenting.
Oh yeah, so has mental health issues.
Exactly. So I feel like even tangu kitambo sana, people got to a place of feeling like, you know what?
Yeah.
Let me just go be me with my
Job
father.
did it.
Exactly. And I think that's been spiritually not considerate. If you treat mental illness as being that's been backward. That's the word. That's been
maybe
backward.
We just don't want to say, and I think we still have an issue with acceptance, because even mental health is talked about now more than it was before. Kudos to many people like you who have come out, and yourself who are speaking about it, and the media that has given space to that. But still, we still haven't scratched the surface, because we still have so much stigmatization that people cannot say that, my brother is bipolar. Myself, I'm bipolar. People think if you put it's another fancy terminology for craziness. And they would rather dismiss it and call somebody insane. Even sometimes somebody, you would see somebody who is in a mental hospital, and imagine that they're just there out of their own doing. Maybe they smoked something, or their parents did something, or somebody looked at them badly, as opposed to just, this is an illness that is treatable and curable, manageable. That somebody can live actually an healthy life post a mental illness. Isn't that so?
Yeah.
And once we change that perception, then we can accept that it can happen to me, and if it can happen to me, it can happen to you. And then we are more aware of how to safeguard our minds from it happening to ourselves. Even guys who have lifelong illnesses, terminal illnesses, they have a mental battle as well. And sometimes it is not, tackled about the same way. So I really commend you guys for stepping out, talk about it. And I do want us to talk about it again, because I know we are running out of time here. Just 2 minutes to go. What would you say is your parting shot to all the young people who have watched you this morning and are struggling with a mental health issue and they have not told anyone? Speak to them.
Wow, I will tell anyone who is watching me, anyone who is looking through this camera and wondering, how did she get out of it? How did she pull through this? I'm going to tell you that I know how it feels to want something so bad yet not know what you need. And I know how it feels to drown in your own predicament, drown in your own problems. And I just want to remind you 5 statements that I wish I had told myself, or I wish that someone had told me. 1, you're valuable. 2, you're loved. You are so worthy, you're so blessed, and you can talk about it, and we can find a solution together. It's so hard to tell someone who is drowning that you can reach out. So what we are doing here is we are reaching out to you to hold our hand, and we are going to find a solution together. You are what this world needs, honestly, and the world wouldn't be better off without you. You have something inside you that is meant to bring change and impact to this world. So talk about it, please. Talking about it is so therapeutic, and you won't know that until you try it. So talk about it, yes, and you're loved.
Yeah, what's your parting shot, Ezra?
Everybody has a pie to break when you're talking about mental health related issues. So every one of us has a part and a role to play, whether you are the government, you're in governmental sectors, you're a parent, you're a teacher, or even young people like us. Every one of us has a role to play. You can have your friend who is suffering the same, you can have your parent who is suffering the same, but every one of us has a role to play, and I think in every darkness there is light. There is light at the end of the tunnel. So in whatever things that you are in, there is always hope. There is always hope. We believe in the sun even when it is not shining. So there is always hope. So don't lose hope. This is life. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Okay.
We definitely have to have this conversation again.
Thank you.
Definitely have to, because mental health issues are life issues, and they don't stop. We have to maintain good mental health even when we are 90. That's 59 minutes for today. Stay tuned for Ilosu coming up with Leah. Have a lovely day.